The Economy, Environment and Infrastructure Committee meeting of Tuesday the 12th of May. Can I remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded and will subsequently be made available to the public for listening. Can I ask for the Sederunt and any apologies?
Good morning. We have 20 members present. We are quorate. Councillor Dick is not present but may be along later.
Okay, can we go to item number 2? Any declarations of interest? Patsy?
Yes, just on item 10, Man Festival is mentioned on several occasions with regards to Scotland, but I don't think it matters with regards to the discussion, so I won't be leaving.
Thanks, Patsy. Alistair?
Thanks very much, Chair. Items 9 and 10, sir. Wigan Rural Development Company Limited is mentioned in both reports. I happen to be the Council's representative on the board of that company. I've taken governance advice from Mr. Crichton. As a consequence of which I would like it noted that I am a director, but that I do not intend to quit the meeting, Chair.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alistair. That will be noted. Any other declarations? Okay, item number 3, the minutes of the Economy, Environment and Infrastructure Committee meeting of the 10th of March. Are members happy that it's a true record of the meeting? Yeah. Take the silence as agreement and the nods. Okay, thanks very much. Okay, item number 4, which is the minute of the House and Subcommittee meeting of the 12th of March. Are members of the House and Subcommittee happy that's a true record? Yeah, agreed. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, can we turn to item number 5, which is the proposed Plan and Environment Services business plan. Members obviously had the opportunity to come along to a seminar to discuss this and give their feedback. Can I ask Alistair if there's anything to add to the report before members?
Thank you very much, Chair. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the business plan for Planning and Environment Services 2015 through to 2018. It will operate under the banner of Planning and Environment Services until April 2016, when it will be merged with the DGFIrst service plan to form the first service plan for economy, environment and infrastructure. 3.2 covers the key features of the new business plans as set out in the full council report, and 3.3, the business plan may be subject to amendment in light of members' comments on the end-of-year performance report, which we'll present to the July committee on the 14th of July, and then we'll present that along with the detailed budget allocations and updated staffing information. The final business plan will therefore not be published on our council's website until the 30th of July. Paragraphs 3.4 through to 3.8 detail the various reporting mechanisms for business plans, and paragraphs 3.9 through to 3.12 are the key issues for planning and environment services. The reshaping of the councils sees 6 departments move to 4 directorates during the coming year, and the business plans will be presented to relevant service committees in the spring of 2016 for the 4 new directorates, and I've covered that already. The heads of service are available to answer any detailed questions, and quite happy to take questions, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I open it up to members for questions? Okay, Jane and then Patsy.
Thanks, Chairman. It's the issue of carbon management, and in the projects removed from the business plan from last year, I haven't got the page in front of me, I'm afraid, but I do notice that there's been a removal of carbon management as a specific project because there are deemed to be enough targets and proposals elsewhere in the business plan. But I would just ask, is one of Planning Environment Services, I think it's number 5, that we are to be reducing carbon footprint and reducing energy use in the whole of the council, and I would suggest it's possible that actually not sufficient emphasis is placed in this business plan. We've got targets of 4% reduction on the 2008-9 baseline, I think. but it simply says that's the team leader's responsibility. And it doesn't actually make it clear that it is the responsibility of each of the individual services. And one of the business plans that we've dealt with already, Social Work Services Business Plan, it's got nothing in it about carbon, not a thing. So I wonder whether we actually should be a little bit more specific about following up on carbon targets, which was certainly there last year in each of the individual services, so that our read across should be that we hold these other services to account.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, Councillor Maitland. Completely acknowledge that point, accept that point. Anything that has been withdrawn from the previous business plan will go down to the next level in team plans. So it's not that we're taking our eye off the ball, but your points are well made, and we'll have a look at being more specific within the plan, holding other departments to account, because it is a corporate issue, and we are the lead on that. So thank you for that comment.
Patsy?
Thank you. It's just at 3.8 when you talk about how you let people know what's going on with information and so forth. And you know, we do have broadcasts annually. I'm just kind of wondering how effective that is as a means of getting. I just wonder how well read it is. I think we tend to stick with what we've always had because that's what we've always done. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way to do something. And I wonder if actually a magazine is what people pick up and read nowadays. I just don't know. I just think it's a bit old-fashioned. And I don't know, but I understand that you have to legally put out information somehow, and people have got to be able to access it with ease. But I'm just kind of wondering if it's actually effective or not. I don't know how you discover that.
I think I'm right in saying, I'm looking at press team away at the back, but I think I'm right in saying that this is the final year of that current broadcast contract in that format, and I think there's a proposal to review it once that final one's done, I think. So I think that's a well-made point, actually. Ian?
Thanks, Chairman. It was good to go back to Jane's question in regards to carbon management. I just understood that whole remit had been moved mostly centrally under property services, and that's why it wasn't just as obvious within the business plan, just to take greater control of it and put a higher emphasis on it, just to get reassurance if that's the case or not.
Yes, in the reshaping of the council, it is the intention to take carbon and energy management and move it to the corporate centre and to work alongside property services with our estate. But that's for the future, and that will be 2016 onwards. We're operating this business plan as it stands until 2016, so the carbon management is very much in here. And we can't take our eye off the ball as the year goes on, so I think it stays in here, and I think we just need to beef it up a bit more.
Okay, I've got Jeff, and then I've got Jim.
Just a couple of points of clarification in Appendix 1 on page 49 and 59. The final column is data. Is that the actual figures in that particular year? In which case, it might be useful to have the figures for 2014, 2015, effectively the most current year which we have figures for, so we can actually see how the trends are changing. Yep, and on page 64, fair and legal lending, perhaps we should also, in terms of the outcome, have and to promote the use of credit unions in order to cut back on problems with illegal lending. And finally, on page 72 and 73, or specifically 73, the net costs of refuse collection per premise, the outcome is a decrease in the net cost of refuse, and one below, a decrease of net cost of refuse. But in actual fact, what we're showing is an increase over the 3-year periods for both of those, going up from 65 to 75 pounds in the first case and 150 to 160 in the second case. So either our target's wrong or our outcomes wrong.
I could just pick up on the last point, yes, I think effectively what we're showing, we're reflecting in the target with the net cost of refuse collection per premise is the new service rolling out, which we have identified in terms of the way we measure the indicator. There is an additional cost to provide the wider service. I think you're right that there's a kind of discrepancy with how we've described the outcome, and it's always, it's probably longer term to manage that as a decreasing cost, but in the interim, it's probably to maintain, manage the cost effectively in the rollout of the new service.
Okay, another point? Do you want to come in and you?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it's a good point, Councillor Leader, in terms of the economic data and targets. I think, as I explained to members at the seminar, some of these are at a fairly high level and are more a barometer of economic performance. And what we'll be able to do in terms of reporting is make comment on the position between 14, 15 and the targets, without doubt. Yes.
Yeah, I think it is essential that we have these easily accessible rather than for us having to search around to find out what the trend is. And the promotion of the credit unions.
I suspect that's probably CCS committee, I would have thought, given that it's the Welfare Reform Subcommittee are taking the lead on that. I suspect that probably comes under their remit. So we should really probably check to see the extent that's reflected in the business plan for community and customer services. I think it probably come under their remit. Unless you want to add to that.
It would do for that, but I think in terms of the number of business grants to social enterprises, which is one of the targets you're looking at there, I think the issue is that we're starting new programs, particularly the financial assistance small business, so it would be starting on a new program, but we will be able to look back at historic data and make comment and give members full opportunity to scrutinise the historic performance to the new performance.
Okay, I've got Jim next.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a couple of points. It's nice to see that the officers took my suggestion regarding the school transport and the slight rewording in it. There's several of the new KPIs that we're putting in. I would welcome all of them, but one in particular, the Dumfries and Galloway average weekly gross pay. For anybody who is wanting a good read, is actually to read the 4 area profiles, and there is actually a vast difference between the 4 areas in the average weekly gross pay. How are we going to monitor the difference inter-region, not just across the region, what the average is across the region?
I think at this level, in this business plan, this is about the overall strategic regional figures. I think when we come on to discuss the regional economic strategy and the monitoring of that, that's where I would expect that we'd be able to bring forward to members more localised information, and happy to look at that as part of the performance reporting of the economic strategy, because this is an issue that's wider than just council resource and services, and is certainly, as we come on to the strategy discussion, it very much is about looking region-wide at interventions. So I think it's a good point to raise, and we can cover it then.
Jane?
It is really a follow-up as to what was being discussed earlier, which is about the removal of items here to the team plan. I would ask you, Chairman, about whether we in fact have sufficient overview. If we get something like, for argument's sake, the proportion of protected nature sites in a favourable condition, if that's moved straight to the team plan, I mean, these things can simply go to the team plan and disappear. You know, how would we ever actually see that or monitor that? I don't know if it's a particular performance indicator. I'm not absolutely certain it is. But that's just an example. I mean, there are 23 things which have been removed from here and gone into the team plan. And I would say to members, well, it disappears into the team plan, never to be seen again. How would we ever know, what is happening and what isn't happening?
Well, Chair, I think I can give members an undertaking that these indicators and projects that are removed to the team plans will be reported on. And we'll keep members cited on that. We certainly don't want them to disappear off our radar. They are important, but what we've tried to do is make this plan as focused as possible going forward this year. And I think we'll undertake to come back and report on these team plans throughout our reporting process.
Any other members? Okay, can we turn to the recommendations? Okay, are members happy to agree the business plan 2.1? Yep. Okay, and to note 2.2? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, folks, can we turn to item number 6, which is the report on the service review of DGFIrst and PES business support. Can I ask the Director if there's anything he wishes to add to the report?
Right, thank you very much, Chair. This report is presented to agree the scope and outcomes of the service review for DGFIrst and Planning Environment Services business support. And this review will inform the coming together of these two directorates and the business support that we need to operate the new directorate from 2016. The outline for this service review was included in the Chief Executive's report on the future shape of the Council, which was considered by full Council on the 18th of December 14. This review was subsequently included within the Administration's budget consultation for finance years 15-16 to 17-18, and the financial savings available from this review were included within the 3-year budget approved by the Council in February 15. The scope of the review is attached as Appendix 1, and I would suggest to members that this is the important document to be scrutinised today. The note, and there's a note of the process and progress completed to date, and that's included as Appendix 2, and the service profiles are Appendices 3 to 6, and they just detail the various functions and activities that are being considered under the scope. There's a SWOT analysis at Appendix 7. The planned outcomes for the review are included in 3.2, and just a note on the service profiles, they lay out in some detail the areas to be considered. However, at the time of developing the service profiles, some information was not captured due to time constraints, and these areas will be explored in greater detail during the review progress. Now, I'm the lead director for this particular service review. The responsible head of service is Angela Patterson, who's the head of resources for social work services, and the service review lead is James McDowell, who's the resourcing and improvement manager for DGFIrst. And James is here today to answer any detailed questions you may have. So, thank you, Chair.
Alistair. As Alistair says, this is obviously important for members to be absolutely 100% happy with the scope of the review, because this is obviously our opportunity to influence the outcomes of those reviews. So do members have any questions or any points they want to raise? Jane?
Given that there is, there's an enormous amount of money involved in these support, enormous amount of money. And do you think that we are being ambitious enough with £220,000 of savings in this support service? I also can't tell about the span of control in the papers in here. You can't tell, who's responsible for who immediately. So that's just something I think probably we would be interested in seeing, how that's being worked through. I'll be honest with you, it took me ages to struggle through this, it really did. And I'm not sure that I'm much the wiser, having got to one end to go to the other. I do understand that the outcomes are clearly set out in 3.2. But what we don't also have there is whether there should be any alternative way of doing this. We're simply told that there isn't any competition. And I'm quite happy to hear that there is no competition, or the competition is not the appropriate thing to do. But you know, if we're going to actually look at this really hard, we should be doing the full Monty, which is looking at all options. One of the outcomes of the review would be to be able to say, we are providing a really effective and efficient service, and it couldn't be done better than in-house. I'd be able then to hold up my hand and say to the public, who will challenge me over the enormous amount of money which is spent here, that we are actually getting better value.
Right, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Maitland. Are we being ambitious enough? I think the size of the saving that's targeted, 220,000, is ambitious if we take into context that there's already been a number of service reviews. If we look at the services within PES, you'll all be aware of the 4 service reviews we did on the businesses, and we took something like 15% of staff out at that time. I know that James has already done a service review where he's already taken out a large amount of money, I think about £155,000 previously already. There is no doubt that we've been instructed to be as radical as possible, to recognise the challenge that is ahead of us when it comes to the budgets in the future. So we will be radical, and as the service review develops and we bring it back to members, I hope you'll see that radical approach when we present the final outcome. But yes, I understand the message that's been given. I think in this case, £220,000 is ambitious, but there again, if we can find anything further than that, we will. And as I say, as I've said, we have to be radical in this, and that's something that's expected of us.
Jean, yeah.
And the alternative options? Or to alternative delivery?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, absolutely, totally agree there. Part of the planned outcomes of the review is the organisation of delivery. And the third point there is explore the potential costs and benefits of external provision of, if not all the service, part of the service from local SMEs or local businesses. So yeah, very much part of the review.
Any other members? Okay, Patsy.
I have to ask the question, and it's quite a difficult one, but I just wonder if the best people for doing the review are the people who are being reviewed. You know, Alistair, I don't mean it in any way, but you know, you're the lead officer, but it's your department that's being reviewed, and I just sometimes wonder if you don't need a outside vision to look in and say, why do you do that? Why don't you do this in a different way or something? And it's quite difficult to do it when you're living with it all the time, to take a step back and really do this radical review that you're trying to do. And I just would like assurance that you think that that is actually going to happen. Because I rather agree with Councillor Maitland, it's not a huge saving for such a big review.
Well, I think the saving percentage is about 10%, which you know, is fairly large. And I think if we go back to the Planning Environment Service service reviews, I think we presented options for 5%, 10%, 15% and 20%. And in some cases, members did take the 20%. So we'll keep that in mind. To have it completely unbiased, the head of service really has to push this forward, and the head of service is from another department. I would hope that I've proved in the past as director that I'm unbiased about these service reviews, because I've done 7, and I think members were very happy with the outcomes. They were radical. We really changed things, and my job is to challenge both Angela and James in that leading, and I will challenge them. So I hope you will trust me to do that. And going on my past record, this will be my 8th, and I think they've been successful today, and certainly, as I say, we will be radical in looking at this. This will be the blood that pumps round my new directorate and supports all the businesses we have to deliver. So it's essential that I get the right shape and I get the right way forward for our customers and for members and for the council in general.
think it's fair to say also that we did agree a service review structure that includes the challenge panel element as well. So obviously we'll have officers challenging at every opportunity from it with the department as well as within the department as well. And I think it's a valid structure that we agreed for these reviews. Ronnie?
Just a quick point, Chair. In 3.2, understand who our customers are. And if you remember when we were at the graduate presentation, one of the presentations was precisely that. And it's not just outward-facing customers, it's internal customers. And if we're going to this 6 to 4 directorates, working together and understanding what other departments need from us and vice versa, it's not explicit in there, it's morely, but I'm sure we captured that because it was the fantastic feedback we got from the young graduates. So I hope we capture that and that's getting rolled out within 4 new directorates.
Point. Ian?
I suppose, Chairman, I'll come from a slightly different angle in regards to it is a 10% saving when you look at the 2 nearly 3 million. Just in regards to, if we take 10% out, we need to retain still a high level of performance within the department. What reassurances can you give me that will be retained? Because I think it is quite a big chunk. So I need the reassurances from, I think, in particular from the director in regards to, but we will retain a high level of service and performance here.
Yeah, that is absolutely essential. We have to continue to sustain our performance, and we have to continue to look at continuous improvement. It's absolutely essential. And again, we've mentioned all the services that are involved in there, but if you look at planning, if you look at the planning and regulatory services, that went through a very severe service review as part of PES, and we took a lot of staff out and we completely reorganised the planning authority, and our performance has improved drastically. We were sitting down at 31 out of 32 of councils in Scotland, and we're now in the top 15. And obviously my journey is to sustain that going forward. So we have to be very careful that we don't undermine any of our services in this. But that's the whole point of a service review. It's a chance to look at everything in great detail and understand how we can make savings and how we can improve our business performance. And I think we've demonstrated from previous service reviews that you can make savings, and using novel and new techniques of management and process, you can improve your service. It's not impossible.
I'm reassured with the example in particular as well. It is a clear example, and it's probably a good example how you can reduce the level of resource but improve the service. But I'd just like the reassurance that if the cracks do start to appear, that we see it coming back to committee so we can try and address it at that point.
Absolutely, I can give that assurance, yeah.
Thanks, Ian. Okay, I've got Jim next.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just really, the reply to Ian begs another question. Which one's the most important? The 220,000 saving that we've put onto this, or supplying the most efficient service that, as Mr. Speedy says, will make the blood pump through our new service? Which one is it? Is it the 220,000 saving, or is it supplying the most efficient service that we can?
I think they're absolutely equal. That's the targets we have to address. We've been successful before. We'll use all our knowledge, all our experience, all our technique. It's a good review team. James is an excellent officer, and I'm sure he'll produce a good service review.
I think what struck me about the previous reviews we've had within certainly PES is that although there's a sort of target savings figure, what came back from the review is that sometimes we needed to invest elsewhere as well as making overall savings. So the actual saving was higher, but actually we decided to spend money elsewhere in terms of beefing up particular teams, you know. So while there's an overall savings target there, and we'll wait and see what comes out of the review, there's nothing to say that there won't be a decision to invest elsewhere and make a bigger saving in some other area. I think that's an important point. But we do have to have a target saving at the end of the day, because we do have that huge deficit to meet at the end of the day. Okay, Jane.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Going on from that, I mean, I can see that The drive here is to strip out unnecessary activity, to take out the manual handling, double handling of anything that is double handle. I don't know because I can't tell, but I can see that there will be a requirement to look at, almost go back to first principles as to how we get processes to go from one to the next, to make the best for the internal customers, which then, of course, feeds into external customers' satisfaction. Quite a lot of this, I presume, will be to do with IT. I think, and you know, will there be? Have you thought about this? Have you got any immediate notions as to what we might expect to be seeing in terms of IT and what we should be looking for when this next comes back to us? And actually, you could help us about when it's next coming back to us with that sort of information.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Absolutely hit the nail on the head. The big enabler for us is ICT and integration of ICT. You know, it's the customer end-to-end journey, whether it's internal or external. It's making sure that that's fully joined up. There's no manual interference there, and that's the aim that that we'll be looking for. We have elements of mobile working in place within DGFIrst that's linking into our CRM modules, logins. So I think that's a start of the model that we'll look at, where it's coming in at source, wherever that source is. You know, that's where the information's coming in, and it's going through to our back office. It's going front to back seamlessly without staff having to, you know, manually input it from an email onto another system or whatever it is. Absolutely, ICT.
Jeff?
Just an observation from what the director was saying about the review of the planning system. We've went from 31 to amongst the best 15 in the country, and I think as a council we need to make it more apparent to the public that these reviews are an opportunity. They're not necessarily a threat. You know, we can actually have a much better system delivered at much lower cost than we have at the moment, and I don't think that's coming across clearly enough from the council across all of its services.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. There's a SWOT analysis at the end, and we have to look at this as an opportunity. And looking at services, it's pointless saying, well, we've done it that way, we'll always do it that way. We have to change. We have to look at new ways of delivering, and we have to focus on the customer. And we have to change our culture. Our culture has to be a can-do culture, and that's what the council needs to be. It needs to be a council that looks outwardly all the time to its customers, drives forward its performance for results, and it certainly can't sit and look internally and contemplate its own navel. That's just a waste of time.
Okay, Graham?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just if I could just go back to what the director said about planning. We've gone from 31 up to the top half of the league table. My understanding was that would give us a possibility of an ability to increase our planning charges. Has that been done? And has it been a significant increase?
That whole process is still being discussed with the Scottish Government. I don't think there's any final details being agreed on it, but it's very important that we maintain and sustain our performance to ensure that we can be in that higher level of fee charge. That's only within a year we've made that jump. I think there was a time I thought it might take 2 or 3 years, but our challenge now is to sustain that and keep at that level and try and improve further. I'll report back to members on the increased fee issue and advise you of the details of that. I'll circulate an email to you all.
Good point, Graham. Okay, Jen?
Thank you, Chair. On page 137 of 484 and 485 and 139. On these 3 pages, some interesting figures like handling burial arrangements and invoicing 1,129. Home garden maintenance invoices 1,077. I wonder, is there a financial figure to come alongside, I would like to know more in detail. Would that be possible?
There are large numbers of transactional sort of events that take place within the current structure there. They do vary from year to year, obviously depending on the demand, but yeah, we could put some sort of financial amount per transaction and work out what that actually equates to. Could be something we could do, yeah.
Okay, any other? Sorry, Craig, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Just in regard to the planned outcomes and of course the link into the service review, as it mentions there, gives us the opportunity to understand our customers and their needs and expectations of our council and this department in particular. But I think within the service review, it gives us that opportunity to engage with our customers, whether they're internal or external, and to get a better feeling as to the type of services that they are requiring. And that, I think, will come forward within the review as well, because if we can understand how our customers wish us to proceed with the services that we offer to them, and their needs are changing as well as the environment and the economy changes. So that is a constant change, I would imagine, from customers of all bases. And within the service review, I think it gives us an opportunity to adapt to that and to change our services to suit their needs, not necessarily in the view of a cost saving. It might just be by the way that we implement them services to suit the customer. So I think the review across the base, both cost saving and with the, as Councillor McClung stated, our customers' needs, I think it's appropriate that this can all be contained within this review and not necessarily just as a cost basis. So I think that opportunity is there for this if there's reviews and the scope of this review is carried out correctly.
Good point. Any other members? Okay, members want to turn to the recommendations now. I think fair to say we've reviewed the detailed scope of the review itself. Are members happy to agree the scope and the desired outcomes? 2.2. And happy to note 2.3. Okay, and we'll look forward to having reports back on the outcomes. Thanks very much, James. Yeah. Okay, members, can we turn to item number 7, which is the Plan and Environment Services Stress Action Plan. I'm unsure whether this includes councillors as well as staff. Hopefully it does include councillors. This is obviously similar reports that are being presented to other service committees as well. Can I ask Alistair if there's anything he wishes to add to the report before members?
Thank you, Chair. In the first paragraph, 1.1, the report provides members with an action plan on the improvement work to help reduce stress in planning environment services for 14-15. It should read 15-16. I think the author was rather stressed when they were writing the report. So that should read 15-16. So apologies for that. And obviously, we're doing this in line with corporate policy. Members previously agreed at the Policy and Resources Committee that all service committees would be presented with reports outlining the scale and the impact of stress-related absence, including the number of individual stress action plans in place within each service. The report also provides members with a record of the stress-related sickness absence for planning environment services during the year 14 to 15. Now, we are actively managing this issue, particularly at this time of change and reshaping, and we will remain vigilant over the change period, because that's a time when people do get concerned that their job may change, etc., and we will be vigilant on that. Members will also see from the report that work-related stress is not a significant contributing factor of sickness absence within planning environment service, and therefore it has a low impact on the provision of services at this time. Whilst the work-related stress sickness levels are low, it's recognised by my managers and team managers that there's no room for complacency in that regard. Now, Stuart Cameron, the Business Services Manager, is here to answer any detailed questions that members may have. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Alistair. Can I open it up to members' questions? I think I've got Ian first.
Thanks, Chairman. It's just a brief question in regards to page 243, top left-hand box, second paragraph, says certain management styles are seen as being very abrasive, confrontational and demotivational. And it goes below that, says it was felt that issues were ignored by some managers. I think Fun But Fair is an appropriate way to move forward. So what is it? I think it covers it in the second box, how that could be improved on or implemented in regards to further training and such like. Just like to just expand on that. What's that? Have we seen high levels of that, or is that is it just a normal kind of level, below average, or and if we have, just to get a further explanation on that, please.
It's not a high level. The left-hand box was actually taking out the focus groups. So each service during the process, they filled in their own stress evaluation. It came down to service level. So what I've done here is I've kind of lifted the highlights out of that, where we can apply this across the whole of P&E. So it's, I think looking at management styles is a bit of a tricky one. We're all sitting with driving licenses, and I'm sure we all drive differently when we get here, and that's the kind of factor we're trying to cover. So it's not a real tangible that we can do, which is why we're looking at trying to improve the training to give a level right across the board, that all managers know what's expected of them if they're part of P&E or the wider council. So it's not a high level, and this maybe came out of one specific team, but because of the anonymity of the process, we're not really drilling into a specific area.
Thanks very much, Chairman. Just so it's good to be reassured, and I'll make it very clear. It's good to be reassured that this is no problem within Plan Environment Services.
Okay, I've got Patsy next.
Yes, I'm just looking at the first block on 241, which is, the analysis output, the demands of the job had increased due to less staff to carry out the task, which is quite interesting, carrying on from our service review, which is what you're trying to do. And, one of the things at the bottom, the actions required, is that all line managers are to undertake stress management for managers training course. And I just wonder how many have done that, if that's a big portion of line managers that have to do that, and if that will indeed be done by next year. Because I think it's really important, if when you're going through your review, that all these kind of deadlines and tasks, which become quite pressured, are dealt with.
Our management cohort from director down to service manager level, we've had various training events in the past. We work as a team, and you can't have too much refreshing of training, and that's something that Stuart will speak on a bit more. I think we are doing more with less, but there are key thermometers that I would use to measure whether we're being successful in that, and one is absenteeism. And we have the lowest absenteeism in the council. It's below 4%, which is the target. Now, that would be a key thermometer for me to check that we were working and producing and performing such that we were not affecting staff health and well-being. That would certainly show in your absenteeism. And again, from a stress point of view, I think this report indicates that it's not a big issue for us in PES, but we can't be complacent through a change process. And it's up to managers to look out for that. But first and foremost, the responsibility is on the member of staff themselves. They have a clear obligation on their health, safety and well-being, that if they are feeling stressed or they're feeling concerned about the workload, they have a duty to go directly to their line manager. And that's the first move. And then we put in the processes after that to help and take care of the situation. You want to add anything further, Stuart?
Yeah, I think we've got the stress management managers is actually a mandatory training course within the Plan Environment Services Health and Safety Plan. And we are currently, as we speak, kind of booking managers that haven't had the training onto the course, and any that requires a refresher will be going it as well. So I'm quite confident that we'll be compliant by next March.
Okay, Jim next.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Any action plan that we put into place to try and reduce stress on staff, and hopefully councillors as well, is welcome. However, it's interesting to hear Mr Speedy saying that staff have the onus, if they are feeling stressed, to actually approach the line manager. Having come from the work that I did, I'm quite well aware that a lot of staff, and it's probably the same as council workers, they will not notify stress because of the stigma that's attached to it. Pure and simple, they don't want to be labelled as suffering from stress. And although it's not a service that's under the director's control at the minute, it will soon be. There is a service at the minute that is requiring staff who are being sent to consultant specialists who may be suffering from some quite serious illnesses to either take an annual leave day or take day off without pay. Now, I don't think that's a very good example of a caring council or a caring employee. I can understand staff being told that just for an ordinary doctor's appointment, but being sent to specialists to find out if they're actually suffering from a serious complaint, to make them take a day off on holiday or a day off without pay, I don't think that's acceptable, to be honest.
I think I need to speak to Councillor McClellan and get more details on that, just to understand what that issue is. Thanks.
Okay, do we have any other members? Ronnie?
If you look at all the boxes on the left, a lot of them say communication. And as somebody that went through a transition period at Chapel Cross, and I was heavily involved in that, you can't communicate enough. And it's not just one way, it's two ways. Listen to what the people are saying. And if you can understand that, you can alleviate some of the stress. Because there's nothing worse than not knowing what's going on, especially when you're involved. So I take it, it's implicit within there that you do the two-way communication. And some of your one-to-ones is key to that, I think.
Yeah, I think the action plan is really aimed at communication, you know, making sure we've got DMTs, SMTs, one-to-ones, so that if there is any pressure arising, you're actually nipping that in the bud before it turns into a work-related stress incident.
Okay, any final members? Okay, can we, Ian?
Just a really quick one, Chairman, because we did discuss this as a group before we came in, and when we read this, we do recognise that P&E is the highest performer when it comes to sickness and stress, I think, within over the council departments, and we just want to place that on record that a sign of appreciation and thanks. In regards to that, we do think it should be recognised because it's kind of it goes back to the stress and the sickness levels goes through it's a theme through every report within here because it all leads to productivity levels of performance. So it's absolutely it's so important. We do feel that as a group that it is recognised, Chairman.
Okay, and finally, Finlay.
Thanks, Chair. Just a comment, really. I think I agree with Councillor McClung. It's very difficult for a member of staff actually to approach the line manager, whatever, to suggest they're under stress. I think it puts more emphasis on how important it is that the annual reviews are done on time and as you know, to make sure they're actually getting done. Because I know we've seen some of the key performance indicators which suggested that the annual reviews weren't being done in time. I think that's the one opportunity for a line manager, whatever, to actually take the opportunity to speak to the members of staff. So I'd like to see that you know, we actually up the performance in terms of annual review being done in time.
Point, Finlay. Okay, members, do you want to turn to the recommendations now? Are members happy to note the action plan? And obviously note the levels of sickness absence recorded due to stress at 3.5. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks very much, Stuart. Okay, members, can we turn to item number 8, which is the Dumfries and Galloway Regional Economic Strategy proposals for 2015 to 2020. I think it's fair to say this is a hugely important document for this council and obviously our partners as well. It's been well documented, the challenges that we face in the region in relation to youth unemployment, in terms of productivity, issues around underemployment and low wages. And I think it's really crucial that we drive forward this strategy. Obviously, members had the opportunity to feed into it as part of a recent seminar and discussions with officers. But I think absolutely crucial that we agree this, and obviously it will then go to the strategic partnership for agreement, because it is a partnership document. And I'm going to ask Ewan now, who's going to give us a short summary and presentation on the actual strategy.
Is that better? Well done. How's that? There we go. Right, ideal. Result. Thank you very much. Okay, so I thought it was important to go and just provide a quick overview for you of the context of where we've got to in terms of the strategy, the principles behind it, what the headlines are and the strategic actions, just as a precursor to some debate around the report. I think the first thing to recognise is that it's the regional economic strategy. It's not the council's document, although we have a lead role to bring this together and coordinate the strategy, but it's very much about community planning, which, as you'll know, is around bringing business, education, social enterprise and public sector together. But crucially as well, in terms of the ambition in the strategy, it can't be just about the council working to deliver these ambitions. It has to be around the public sector, very much about the business community and our engagement with the business community to deliver the outcomes, about our education providers, and I think more and more crucially moving forward, social enterprise. Some of the baseline challenges in the Crichton Institute report was a very strong document which captured the economic baseline for the region. And as members, you have seen sight of this before, but some of the key points to bring out there, in general, our economy has low productivity and business growth, and that very much reflects the traditional nature of some of the economic sectors around tourism and agriculture, for example. So one of the challenges, there's a real challenge here for us if we're going to make a step change in the economy, and how do we address that and look at how we get business growth, not just in our indigenous sectors, but in new sectors. Our low wage challenge is significant. As you know, we have the lowest wage per head nationally. And low skills is not a reflection on educational attainment through school, which is strong. This particularly reflects the transition from school into further and higher education, both reflecting the offer that's been available, but also the job opportunities at the end of that and the ambition for people leaving school and what they seek to achieve. Youth employment, where, as you'll be aware, our youth employment rate is less than the national average, or our youth unemployment rate is higher than the national average. And whilst we've made some very good strides to address that, we still have some work to go. And with an ageing population, and the demographic challenge does present an opportunity when you consider healthcare, for example, as a growing economic sector. So whilst there are challenges here, there are opportunities within this as well. So in principles behind the strategy was to ensure that every member of every community has the quality of access to a prosperous future. And whilst the interventions may be different across the region, this is certainly about a regional approach to economic development. And importantly, I think that it's about synergy and alignment with other key strategies which the Council and our Community Planning Partnership or Strategic Partnership have ownership of. And that's linking in growth in the economy to supporting children and vulnerable adults and tackling poverty. So the vision articulated in the strategy is really about how we address the key issues and become diverse, resilient, skilled, connected and inclusive. And again, just stressing there again that where every member of every community has equality of access to that prosperity. To try and capture this and to focus the strategy, and this is the key point about having a new strategy, it's about focus. And it's about what are the measures of success that we want to put in place that we'll know we're making a difference and getting a step change. So the three measures that we've articulated here are that we will have the highest youth employment rate in Scotland by 2020, that the number of businesses in the region will be growing faster than in Scotland as a whole, and we'll reduce the wages gap between the regional and national average by 20%. Now these are, I believe, ambitious targets, but certainly we have tested them in terms of achievability in discussions with other agencies and national partners, and feel that it's right to be ambitious and that these are set at the right levels. And I think you'll find that if you consider the approach we're taking to youth employment, for example, in the council leadership role there, we certainly feel we have in place both the resources and the services across the different partners to work towards these measures of success. So taking the strategy forward, we've set 6 strategic objectives around growing businesses, and that's a focus on growing existing businesses. While startup is important, there has to be an increased focus on growing the Indigenous business base and looking at inward investment, developing our places, and that reflects pretty much in the Council's priorities around some of our regeneration proposals. Better skills, better opportunities to address the issue of skills available in the region to meet employer demands in the future. And well-developed infrastructure, which is about employment sites, but also about roads infrastructure, for example, and broadband. And our large investment projects, which I really want to be seen as key drivers for the economy. And in the west, that would be around Stranraer waterfront regeneration. Moving into Dumfries, that would be the Crichton campus, for example, and the opportunity there. And then the M74 corridor as examples of these major investment projects that will have a region-wide reach and impact. And number 6 there, about intelligence, leadership and influence, coming out very strongly, both from feedback from yourselves as members, from the business community and other stakeholders, was an issue that our region needs to improve its lobbying and our position in the national and even international stage. So there's definitely a very important strategic objective here that we work to improve our leadership as a public sector, as a private sector, but our lobbying position in terms of resource and support. Delivering the strategy, we're going to put in place action plans. There is no action plan attached to this strategy at the moment. This is about a strategic document. But essentially, what we have is all the key partners locally and nationally have signed up to the strategy. They've all influenced how it's been developed. And what we will distill into an action plan are the 3 or 4 key actions that each agency will seek to deliver to support the aims of the strategy. I think an important part also is around setting up an economic leadership group, and that's well articulated in the report and the strategy itself. But that essentially is trying to bring a stronger business connection or private sector connection to our strategy. We want to establish a leadership group which will be private sector led, will include perhaps 6 or 7 private sector business leaders from across the region, but also include 6 or 7 key strategic leaders from the public sector also. We want this to be at a senior level, so we have an opportunity to have scrutiny and checks and balances in terms of the performance and driving the ambition of the strategy, but also looking to the future and that visioning about our region and what's coming next. And at the moment, I think it would be fair to say that we feel there's a weakness there in terms of that debate at that senior level in the region. And finally, just to cover off, what difference will this make and what will be the outcomes? And I think one of the, I hope you feel through the strategy is it's about maximising the strengths of the region that we have at the moment and build upon that. We identified that there are 3 or 4 key economic challenges that we're going to address. That crucially, private sector-led employment growth will be the focus, and I think that's reflected well in the strategic objectives. That contributions of our public and national partners will be maximised, and that's not just the internal investment through public sector in Dumfries and Galloway, but it's about what national partners are bringing to our region to do more for us. It's that we see our local communities better empowered to deliver and pick up on economic opportunities that may arise, and that greater regional equity will be focused for our lobbying, and that is really about that position in terms of influencing and lobbying harder at national, UK and EU level to ensure that this region gets more than its fair share of resources and support. Thank you, Chair, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Ewan. And that was an excellent focused summary of the document that's before members. Can I open it up to members now for any questions? Finlay first, and then Ronnie.
Thanks, Chair. Obviously welcome the very big targets we've got. They are very forward-looking. Whether we can achieve them or not, I think it's going to be difficult, especially in the youth employment. But I know we're starting to make grounds in that. My concern is, and how are we going to address where 3 of the main issues you touched on is our infrastructure. Our trunk roads are out with the council's power. We've got dreadful communications in terms of A75, 76 and 77. Our broadband infrastructure, I think very shortly we're going to get a backlash because the public and business are not going to be happy with the outcome of the investment in the broadband network. I think we've been misled. We're not going to hit the targets that people were led to believe. We're not going to get 95% of people in Dumfries and Galloway in superfast broadband. It's just not going to happen. And again, that's government money. We're looking for that. And also, one of the big drivers is Scottish Enterprise. We've got 90% of our businesses are 10 or less employees. Scottish Enterprise for too long have been concentrating on the businesses with big turnovers, which tend to be in the central belt. How are we going to address that and get Scottish Enterprise back down here to look at our entrepreneurs and whatever on small businesses, because that's ultimately how we're going to drive the economy of Dumfries and Galloway forward.
Thank you. I think in terms of major infrastructure that's essential for our economy, I think what I was trying to stress here is that we need to lobby harder, but have a starting point for lobbying it. And I think the strategy gives us that puts things in context, and it allows us to lobby harder for additional resource that may be required for roads infrastructure, for example. And so I would see that lobbying role becoming an extremely visible part of what we're delivering. It's not just about the interventions on the ground, it's about that lobbying position. I think in terms of broadband, I can't comment on progress to date. I haven't got that with me, but there's a member seminar in due course where we can raise that. But I do feel that we've had there's obviously a significant investment in broadband. And one of our main aims was to capitalise on the back of that. And I think that's important, and that would be reflected in this issue about supporting our existing businesses to capitalise on that. In terms of Scottish Enterprise, I would say quite openly that the process of developing the strategy to this stage has allowed us to have fairly robust discussions with Scottish Enterprise about what their role is. I would say there's a very much more proactive approach now to what they're going to be delivering in the future. This issue of regional equity has come very strongly through government, and a recognition that there needs to be an equity across the region, but also a greater support for a rural area like ourselves, where we have got predominance of small businesses. And I'm very encouraged that Scottish Enterprise have wholeheartedly got behind the strategy, but we've already started working with them on what's going to change and how can they do more for us, and not under just the national banner of growth, but locally. So I think that's been a positive step forward, but absolutely recognise that members will need to see that the proof will be in the pudding in due course on that issue.
I think valid points here, and I think myself, I think Alistair and you are meeting with Scottish Enterprise later this month. I think that members will have received a copy of the action plan that was agreed between the Council and Scottish Enterprise. So I think we are making progress at long last. I take on board entirely the point you make about the focus on Scottish Enterprise. I think it comes down to the issue around the need to lobby hard around this principle about regional equity, that it's not just about growing the Scottish economy that government needs to be focused on, it's to make sure that all parts of Scotland actually benefit from that growth. And I think that's maybe been missing in the past. I think there is, to be fair to the Scottish Government, a change in their new economic strategy document published recently that focuses a lot more on regional equity. You know, if we're going to see the Scottish economy grow, that needs to be every part of Scotland, needs to be Wigtonshire growing as much as Glasgow growing, quite frankly. And we need to really lobby hard for that, and there needs to be that regional equity. And I think, certainly from my point of view, as chair of this committee, the regional equity issue will absolutely be at the forefront, because we need to make sure we get our fair share as a region, and that includes working with Scottish government agencies like Scottish Enterprise to take that forward. I think the seminar was yesterday, I think, on the broadband issue, and it's not just about the 95%. I think there's also that other 5% as well that concerns me, probably more than the 95%. I don't know. I think we will get the 95%. I've not been told otherwise, but 5% to me still remains a mystery, I have to say, how that will be solved from a technological point of view, never mind from an investment point of view. But I think some valid points there. I've got Ronnie, and then I've got Ian.
Ewan, on page 258 under the heading Investment for Growth, and you've got Chapel Cross site down there, and it's pretty specific. And I'm a bit disappointed, really, because I spent 2 days at a workshop with you and others, and Yeah, that was one of the themes that came up, was heavily pushed by the Scottish enterprise. And a week later, in the local press, and on the same day as the Chattlecross SSG, the headline was exactly that. And we were all taken aback that somebody outside of the SSG was pushing Chattlecross as this energy place. What we said at the 2-day workshop was we shouldn't rule anything in and rule anything out. It should be flexible as possible. And I fear we're being steered down a particular route here that might shut off avenues for other development at the Chattlecross site. So I'm a bit disappointed, Ewan.
Well, I think what we've always recognised is that there's a potential there around energy. I accept that the detail of that doesn't exist yet, but also the outcome of the charrette and the master planning hasn't concluded. What this is not saying is that Chattlecross is only about that. There's definitely other opportunities. What I'm trying to say here is that there's an opportunity to do some of national and international scale potentially as a centre of excellence. Trying to give the context that it is a major site that's going to have significant impact on not just the corridor but the region's economy. But completely accept that actually one of the actions coming out of this will be completion of that strategy to bring forward the master plan.
Yeah, you say that, but it's not in this document. And we haven't had the feedback from the company that we hired to do the work. I haven't seen any feedback yet on the 2 days that we spent there, and others, not just myself. So if you put that bit, and also it could be used for other reasons, you know, the narrative you just said to me, if that was in there, I'd be more comfortable, but it's not. It's just focusing on one issue there.
I'm happy to make that a stronger statement around the future potential. Happy to take that on board, yes.
Okay, Ian and then Yen.
Thanks, Chairman. I think as a group we're certainly supportive of this economic strategy as we go forward for the Dumfries and Galloway as a region. It is ambitious, but just a few points of clarity in regards to it. When you speak about the 20% wage gap between local and national levels, what does that mean in monetary terms, if you could tell me? If we get that, a few questions. So just between the local and national, what does that mean in real terms, money? What is the money difference? What is somebody in Glasgow receiving at a level of funds compared to wages compared to here? See, in regards to the key partners, I think I'm aware of who the key partners are, lead partners and that, but just I'd like to be explicit who they are, because there is a kind of, is it going to be the same old out there as well? So I just want to be aware of who the actual key partners are. So just, and if this was to come to fruition over the next 5 years, what would be the GDP increase for Dumfries and Galloway? What would it mean in real monetary terms across the whole of Dumfries and Galloway? If we've got any idea, I mean, any questions, if you can't answer them at the moment, certainly happy to take them at a later point in time, but that's the three at the moment, please.
Thank you. In terms of the data around low wages, at the moment, the average wage is £359 per week in D&G. The national average is 414. But to put this in context of the data we have, the region with the highest pay from our comparator regions that the baseline looked at is £382 per hour, which is in the Highlands and Inverness. So I think that gives you the range, and by making a significant step change of 20% does not take us into the highest level, because I think we have to be mindful of our region's economy and the traditional base around agriculture and tourism, but certainly will take us above our comparator regions, for example, Perth and Kinross, Scottish Borders. In terms of the key partners, well, I think on a national level, what I've been really pleased about in terms of developing the strategy, the key partners like Scottish Enterprise, Skills Development Scotland, VisitScotland, all very much on board and have helped influence and shape the strategy coming forward, and all recognise that their actions, which they take forward, have to aggregate up to meet the aims and ambitions of the strategy. One of the national partners that we haven't engaged with significantly in the past is the Scottish Council for Development Industry, or SCDI as they're known, and that's really a lobbying group at a national level, and that's where I hope that we will get greater involvement and greater support and expertise in terms of lobbying for the region by bringing them on board. I think our regional partners are well known and well rehearsed, and certainly if you consider the Crichton Campus Leadership Group with the higher education, further education partners, very much on board. And in terms of the social enterprises, positive feedback and input from certainly through the third sector interface in terms of recognition that social enterprise is going to be important in developing social enterprise as a way of perhaps bringing forward local economic development solutions, particularly in the rural areas. So I hope that gives you a flavour of the range of partners that we're looking at here. In terms of the GDP rise, that's a very good question. And I'll probably come back to members with a specific detail on that.
Okay, I've got Yen and then Patsy and then Finlay again. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's very ambitious strategy. I definitely welcome this. To get it right, providing leadership and lobbying, we have to work together for the benefits of our business communities, private sectors, public sectors, and third sectors. We need to work together and to have a shared vision. I and my group members asked the Cabinet Minister for Town Centres, Agnew MSP, to support our region. He genuinely agreed and suggests that if DNG Council invites him to our region, and he will definitely facilitate the Town Centre Summit and meet with local communities. As we all know, our town, our shops are closing down one by one, and we all have to take in urgent actions to improve our town centres. Now, I am very encouraged that our chairperson, supporting this idea, and I am seeking for members to have consensus on this. Can we move this forward as a committee and as a council to invite Cabinet Minister to come to Dumfries and Galloway?
Okay, thanks very much, Jen. As Jen says, I'm very supportive of this initiative. I think it's important that we have clear dialogue with the Scottish Government. Certainly, as chair of the South of Scotland Alliance, we meet as a group with the Deputy First Minister on a regular basis now. It used to be an annual meeting, that's been increased, and at the last meeting, the commitment was given that if other Cabinet Ministers were able, and there were issues that we wanted to discuss with him, he would certainly facilitate that. So I think that's certainly an offer we will take up, because our town centres and our market towns are absolutely crucial in this area, and I think we can all see the challenges that the towns face. It's not unique to Dumfries and Galloway by any stretch of the imagination. It's a Scotland-wide issue, and we're going to have to work to really tackle those particular issues. So we'll certainly take the Minister up on that offer. I'll personally show him round Dumfries High Street to see the challenges. Do we have any other, sorry, Patsy and then Finlay. Any other members want to come in? Yeah, and then Jim. Okay, Patsy.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'm just looking at the Economic Leadership Group, which is explained in Appendix 3 on 275. And I just wonder if this is replacing the local economic forum. I just wondered what's happened to that. But also, I noticed in the membership of it that, you know, they're going to be up to 6 private sector business leaders. And I just wonder how you get these people involved, bearing in mind that, you know, we have a lot of small businesses that are kind of on their own. That, you know, we see the creative businesses, you know, we've got the programme for Spring Fling. It just shows you how many people are doing things across the region who are just on their own really quite a lot of the time. And they're really fundamental to the growth of everything in Dumfries and Galloway and help build up the local economy. And I just wonder how you reach people like that, because they are so important. And I kind of feel that, I just wonder if the Federation of Small Businesses is still functioning properly, and the Chamber of Commerce, and if there is a forum for the creative industries that actually do reach out to these sort of almost isolated people who are working all over the place doing good things, but probably don't know there is going to be an economic leadership group in the area. It's quite a challenge.
I think it's absolutely essential that we get this group right and get the leadership of this group and the chairmanship of this group right. And I've been discussing that, given the ownership of this at the community planning level, with the executive group there, with the chief executive of our council and other senior leaders. And to help that, we obviously want to ensure a geographic spread in referencing and reflect the economy we have. But very much want to try and open this up to get as many new leaders coming forward as possible who perhaps we don't engage with to get their views. I think it's very important this group is chaired and directed through the private sector. And I'll touch on the forum at the end if you don't mind if we go through this. The Chamber of Commerce, for example, Dumfries and Galloway Chamber of Commerce and indeed the Wigtonshire Chamber of Commerce have been involved as stakeholders to this point. They're very important groups, and we work very closely with them to engage with businesses either on a thematic basis, for example, on specifics to the tourism industry, for example. So I think in terms of getting reach and engagement, we're doing much better at that across the region on a thematic basis. Absolutely recognise that it's difficult to engage with small and micro employers at times, and certainly we're working specifically with the Chamber of Commerce as well at trying to grow that engagement role. I think, though, in terms of the leadership group here, what my view would be is that we're not going to get out to every single business around and asking them to come take part in a leadership group. We want to target, in the first instance, 6 or 7 private sector business leaders who can take part in this group and can actually provide us with that leadership that we feel is perhaps missing at the moment. In terms of economic forum, which is the first part of your question, Councillor Galloway, that group was stood down, I think, some years ago now, probably about 3 years ago. And there has been probably a gap since then in terms of that engagement. But that group itself tended to be more public sector dominated and asking private sector businessmen or women to come around the table and look at action plans and large reports. And really it was about what the public sector were doing. So that hasn't existed for quite some time. This should go some way to filling that gap, but be about engaging and getting the leadership and checks and balances and scrutiny from the private sector, I think probably in a more robust and appropriate way, without making it too onerous. But also I come back to that bit that I said in the presentation about the visioning in the future and having people acting as ambassadors for the region as well. So I think this will go a long way to replacing that former old structure, but be better and more effective.
Happy with that, Patsy? I think yes, it is going to be challenging to get 6,000 businesses into a group of 6, but engaging with business is always a big challenge in this region. I think Finlay made the point earlier, 90% of those 6,000 businesses employ less than 10 people. People are busy getting on with the business, never mind engaging, so it is a big challenge.
But it's just one of the questions I did ask was, how do you choose your 6 private sector business leaders? I mean, how do you go about doing that? You just put it out and see who comes back, or do you actually invite people to join your group? Or
I think that what we've discussed at the Strategic Partnership or Community Planning Executive Group level is that it would be important to work to appoint a chair, and then through the chair use their contacts and good offices and that of the Strategic Partnership to invite members from the business community to take part. I think our experience of doing it in different ways, and whilst I can appreciate the point of view around perhaps advertising, for example, our experience of it doesn't quite work. It has to be a more personalised, direct engagement initially, and we'd hope that first of all appoint a chair, and then use the chair as the process for getting people engaged.
Okay, I've got Finlay and then Jim.
Thanks, Chair. Just firstly, on the point in the Economic Leadership Group, I was disappointed to see there's no rural or agricultural colleges mentioned in there. We've got the Scottish Rural Colleges, I think they're called now, at the Barony, and also up at the Crichton. I think there's a possibility that the Barony might close, and that would be a great loss to the area. I think it's important they're on there to develop their rural skills and whatever. I understand that that there's people wanting to get into forestry, whether it's actually working in the forest themselves or at Howies. They're having to travel to Carlisle at the moment to get chainsaw training and certificates and so on. So I think it's important that we do have some representation here from the rural sectors, whether that's through the Scottish Rural Colleges or the Crichton or whatever. I think that's important. Other point was, I don't see fishing mentioned in the document at all, and I think, particularly, Cucubry or we employ a lot of people in Annan and Newton Stewart in the fisheries sector. I don't think they'll be particularly included in the food and drink, but I think we certainly need to have some representation from the fishing industry in Dumfries and Galloway, which is obviously a key player in employment and the economy as well.
Yeah, thank you. I think in terms of the input from something like SRUC and colleges, that certainly would come through the Crichton Campus Leadership Group, which is representative of all these 8 bodies there. I think, though, there's a difference between the Economic Leadership Group as a body itself, as something which is, I suppose, at a very strategic level, to our constant engagement with SRUC or the forestry sector, and indeed the fishing sector, which I absolutely accept has probably been something which, up until the last couple of years, when the European Fisheries Fund came on stream, has been probably not a sector we've engaged with much. But I think that really strong engagement has taken place to get to the strategy through stakeholders, and will continue in our work generally moving forward. So what we didn't want to do was be specific about sectors in terms of leadership group itself, but I can absolutely assure you that in terms of our engagement through things like Business Week or thematic events around tourism, as an example, or even in terms of some of the work we do around forestry businesses themselves, we will continue and actually strengthen that real engagement with the business sector. So we recognise that that's something we've made a step change in, but can do more.
Okay, I've got Ian next, and then Craig.
Thanks, Chairman. Don't got any real issues with the Economic Leadership Board or group, anyways, in regards to, because I just to put it in context, I thought it was a regional version of the South of Scotland Business Forum. I just thought it was a smaller version of that, similar. It would have similar drivers. The only issue I had with that was I thought chairman and vice chairman should have been 2 appointees and 2 substitutes. That's the only real issue we had as a group. I thought it should have been 2 members from the council, not just 1.
Okay, I've got Craig and then Jim.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just interested, Ewan, if we have any sort of approximate timescales that if we adopt this action plan today, or this strategy today, sort of time plan for moving forward with that, so we actually get it on the ground and acting on behalf of this council and well, for the region as a whole. And the purpose behind that is because with as far as the national context is involved and the lobbying that we would intend to increase moving forward, with the national context, they have strengths with support and growth across all communities in the wider economy. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because Scottish Government, well, Dumfries and Galloway Council are fortunate to have received funding from Scottish Government towards the HEAPS APS programme, the Home Energy Efficiency Programme Scotland. And members of the Housing Subcommittee are well aware we approximately receive £2 million annually from that programme, and it is a guaranteed 10-year programme moving forward. We're moving into our 3rd year of that. Now, because of Scottish Government's procurement policy, they have leased that programme out nationally to 1 company based in the Central Belt. Now, the Housing Subcommittee have pushed this on numerous occasions with our lead officer, that we are very keen to try and lobby Scottish Government so that we can change that procurement process so that Dumfries and Galloway and the small and micro businesses that we have can benefit from that funding. So it doesn't only benefit the householders who are receiving the energy efficiency side of it, it also could go a long way to benefiting our local economy and our local businesses. So I would be very keen, as through the Housing Sub is, that we progress that. So I'm keen on a timescale in this. So if we can get this up and in place and working for the region, then it would give us, through the lobbying side of that, a better opportunity to make that happen.
Well, subject to members' approval today, the next stage would be to go for endorsement strategic partnership in June, and from that point on, this document will be live, and that would be our process. So within the next 4 weeks, we'd have the strategy fully endorsed, and that would be a live document for the region that we can use. At this point, though, it's very much an emerging document, and you can easily use it in that sense as well, if need be.
Thanks, Ewan. Okay, and Jim?
Thanks, Chair. Just an observation. I'm pleased to see that area-based focus groups are featured here, and I wouldn't be too parochial. I just want to be sure that all areas are given the opportunity to make a contribution, if you like. The point I wanted to raise was that we don't seem to have had a consultation with wind farm companies, and they'll be throwing a huge amount of money into this region. There'll be economic opportunities, and they will want to guide some of the way that we use the money within communities as well as the central pot, if ever it gets any. But I think we should be engaging with them as well, because I'm sure they'll have a contribution to make.
I'll put 50%, I think, is the answer, but we're not going to go there.
I think there might not be representatives as organisations, but certainly they will have been given opportunity as businesses, and perhaps it's not explicit, but we did a significant online survey where any existing operations would have been covered by that, so they probably have done, it's just not explicit here.
That's fine, thanks.
Any particular areas you were going to mention there about region-wide? No. No.
Nothing new.
No, okay. Okay, and we'll try again, Jim.
Thanks, Chair. I welcome the strategy, and especially the robust indicators for the success that we're going to have, and also the promotion of the regional equity with other regions. And you'll not be surprised to hear I welcome your comments about Wigtonshire growing as much as Glasgow. But to go back to my question under the business plan, how are we going to ensure that inter-regional we are growing at the same rate? As I mentioned in the business plan, the average weekly gross pay, there are other indicators where Wigtonshire are worse than the other three, and indeed there are areas where other areas in Dumfries and Galloway are worse than Wigtonshire. How do we actually put that all together to make sure that every area within the region is actually growing at the same rate?
I think that the first point of this, in terms of actually understanding the position and measuring that, that's something we can definitely do through the annual report attached to the strategy, and also I would suggest at probably area committee level. I think though what has to be clear is that growth will mean different things in different areas because of the nature of the local economies, and certainly that would reflect. That's been reflected in some of the strategic objectives and some of the major regeneration projects, for example. So there are some challenges for our region in terms of growth at the same level than in terms of an area approach. But certainly what is being proposed here in the strategy is that it's important that every single area and every single community benefits from the whole. And certainly it's not the intention that efforts will only focus or will not be focused on specific areas. It just might be that interventions are different. So there'll be strategic regeneration projects, and Stranraer Waterfront is one as a driver for the South West, but it may be that, for example, the development of social enterprise to support the care sector may be something that's very important in the South West of Scotland. And so that's an example of where the local sort of economic development comes into play in that. I don't think I would be comfortable sitting here saying that we'd be able to achieve parity in terms of growth per se, but what I can give you absolute assurances that across the region, this will be about ensuring that all communities have access to and the same level of opportunity to progress.
Okay, and I've got Alistair next.
Thanks very much indeed, Chair. I must say that I'm pleased to hear Ewan, respond in the way he did, because the blunt fact of the matter is, sir, let's stop deluding ourselves. We'll never be able to grow all parts of the region at the same rate of growth. You've got to be realistic. You've got to identify the strengths and the weaknesses of each particular area, etc., and to proceed as accords. And in areas of the region, and I'm thinking particularly the further west you go, Chair, where there is a proliferation of SMEs or small businesses, they need and they look and would expect totally different type of treatment from much further east. And as I say, our strategy, and let me say, Chair, that I'm totally supportive of this. I think it's a very good document and it's a good way to go forward. But it's got to recognise the disparate nature of our region and the different problems and the different opportunities and develop these on that basis. And just on the back of it, sir, the last paragraph on page 269 of 484, when it talks about the annual report being commissioned by the leadership group, which will report success to date in the delivery of the aims of the strategy. That's good. And provide comment on future challenges and opportunities. That's maybe just a wee bit too euphemistic for me to an extent, sir. I think that the annual report has got to be a warts and all assessment, and it's got to clearly flag up those areas where we are failing, Chair, and more importantly, to address how we can, deal with these failures and turn it round. And I would like to see that sort of perhaps maybe given just a wee bit more prominence. Not being defeatist, Chair. Let's celebrate success. Let's highlight, where we're succeeding. But let's flag up where we're not, work out why we're not, and how we can best address it. Otherwise, as I say, I think this is a first-rate document, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point, Alistair. I have to say, I think to be fair, the good thing about the development of this project is that the starting point was to look for the warts and all report. So the baseline study done by the Crichton Institute, was very frank where the challenges face, and that was the starting point. And I think we've got to continue to be as frank as possible. There's no magic wand by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of these challenges have been there for a long period of time, and overcoming them is ambitious and challenging. But we should be honest. Absolutely, I agree entirely with what you're saying. Okay, that's a good point to finish. I think that's been a... Oh, sorry, Ian.
Would it be possible just to change it then to rather, as if Alice had seen that, I would agree with that, I hadn't picked up on that, but just to change that to, rather than comment, but to recommend on improvements for future challenges and opportunities. So we'll get recommendations come back. Again, we'll get recommendations rather as just it being bland, as Alice has outlined.
Certainly make that change. Obviously, I think the important thing is that the next stage is obviously to get endorsement of the plan with our partners at the strategic partnership, and then of course to develop that action plan, which is where the specifics will come in, how we're actually going to meet those particular aims, and the action plan is obviously going to be a crucial part of this. Okay, members, can we turn to the recommendations? Okay, 2.1, are members happy to agree the adoption of the strategy? Yeah. Okay. 2.2, agree to the nomination of the chair and the substitute. Yeah. Ian?
I was going to move that we put the vice chairman in there as well with his substitute. I think 2 members would be at an appropriate level from the council, if the committee feels that way. The only difficulty is, I suppose, the fact that we're trying to make this as much private sector led as we possibly can. And to make sure we engage as many agencies. And I think Finley's already made the point about the number of agencies and the fact that there's others out there. I think the problem is the more of us councillors that are stuck on there, the less alternatives will be there in terms of the private sector. We don't want to make it too big, or it ends up being a conference rather than a forum. That's the only I'm led by the committee chairman, but I know my experience from the South of Scotland Business Forum. Two wasn't over many by any means. I think we might even have 3 there, but certainly 2 wasn't overburdened at all. And quite often, if somebody can't make it, even for buy of substitutes, it can be difficult. Yeah. And you do want a council member there.
I think that's a valid point, absolutely. And I think actually ensuring there's substitutes there, I think is probably the crucial point. There needs to be some representation there. So, absolutely, yeah. So we'll make sure we can tweak that to say, obviously, substitutes as much as anything else, so that we can make sure that there's a representative there, representing members, absolutely, of this committee. Okay, 2.3. Note that the strategy is going to be presented to the strategic partnership. Happy to note that. That an action plan will be developed, and obviously to agree to receive the annual performance report. And we'll add in, sorry, Ian, do you want to come in? Just is it to add in, obviously, take up the offer of of the meeting with the Minister. Yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah, we'll add that in. Thanks very much for that. And any other ministers that wish to come and have their ear bent, we'll keep the door open for you. Okay, members, thank you very much. Thanks very much to Ewan. Okay, members, can we turn to item number 9, which is on Business Loans Scotland? Could I ask the Director if there's anything he wishes to add to the report?
Nothing to add at this stage, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, we've got Chris and Ewan to answer any questions. Can I open it up to members? Questions, Finlay?
Just a very quick question. Page 283, it's suggesting the following outcomes: 5 new start businesses and 20 existing businesses. I also obviously welcome the fact that we're also concentrating on existing businesses, and because so often we have businesses get to a point and they've got to make a big jump to actually start employing people, and that's where we sadly lacking support up to now. Are these targets you're going to get, or will it just be whatever business comes forward? And this is just a rough indication, or are you actually going to target to get 20 existing businesses and 5 new starts in that sort of ratio? Is that, because obviously until the thing starts we can't see that it comes forward, but is that where the drive is going to be?
Yes, it will be, because I think looking at the purpose of this fund, and growth is one of the key indicators here. Startup is not one of the key indicators really of the whole programme. So absolute focus on growing existing businesses, recognising that there may be occasions where startup businesses with significant growth potential may come forward. Our experience would be that startup businesses tend to look for our more localised financial assistance to small business grant scheme initially before moving into this. So you're exactly right, and that focus on growth is absolutely essential.
Okay. I've got Ian and then George.
Just a quick question, Chairman, in regards to, I think we're certainly in support of this, but the test of due diligence when it comes in as far as a business applying for this, whether it be a new start or whether it be a business that starts up and running, what's the test of due diligence like, and how do you go through that?
Technology and me aren't good. In terms of the due diligence, clearly everything that we do has to comply with FCA legislation and rulings. There is going to be significant training for both business advisors and economic development officers, who will be the first stage for applications coming forward in terms of supporting the businesses to actually fulfil the applications. There will then be due diligence undertaken both at a local level through companies that are appointed, companies such as Experian, for example, that's just one, there are others, who will actually do the due diligence checks at a local level, but also then in terms of the higher levels of loans, there will be due diligence undertaken by the loan company themselves. So to ensure that what we're doing is ensuring compliance all along the route, that the businesses and the clients that are coming forward can meet the loan requirements.
Well, I mean, that's good to hear, but do you think that'll be restrictive towards allowing people to come in and be involved in that, or do you think it's still open enough, it's not overly bureaucratic, you could say?
The aim of this is that it's not overly bureaucratic. I think that's one of the criticisms that we found with the review of South of Scotland loan scheme, for example. But one of the things that we need to ensure is that there is compliance and that financial regulations are complied with, particularly by the businesses coming forward. But the aim is that it isn't deemed to be onerous by the businesses, that they are getting support from the advisor or the economic development officer, but that we make excuse me, the process for them as simple as possible.
Okay, George.
Thanks, Chair. Jeff said to me to be very quick with the question, so I will be. We've got mention in here actually of all the participants in this project, apart from that, the names of any actual banks. Whether that's secret information at the moment or not, I don't know, but I was just curious to know who the bankers are going to be.
There are ongoing discussions with 3 banks that are being undertaken by the company and their lawyers. So they have 3 offers on the table, and that's being discussed with the company and their lawyers to ensure that they get the most appropriate bank on board.
Okay, Graham.
Thanks, Chair. Is there a target turnaround time from someone applies until they get until it's ratified? I mean, all loans will be different probably because of the timescales will be different, but is there a sort of target time? Because quite often it can take a long time, and the more bureaucracy you bring in, the longer it can take, and that would be a worry to me.
The process that we're proposing to put in place allows the turnaround of applicants to be as swift as possible, but clearly what we need to ensure is that all of the due diligence is put in place, that the business advice and support along with the application is in place to ensure that the business can actually fulfil the loans. What we don't want to be doing is putting businesses through a process that they then have difficulty in actually meeting the loans. But the aim is to make it as swift as possible and the turnaround time as quickly as possible. But it's, as you quite rightly say, every business has different requirements. They may need more support with the application. It may be more complex. So we're not looking to put specific targets on that. It's to do the process as swiftly as possible for the individual businesses.
Would there be any chance that the loan officer would be based in Dumfries and Galloway?
The loan officers are going to be hosted by the loan company, but they will operate across the whole of Scotland. And our business advisors and economic development officers will have free access to them both through phone, email and conference call. So even if they may not be in Dumfries and Galloway on any one day, there will be specific access to them. And that will be for the business as well.
Okay, do we have any other members? Sorry. Oh, sorry, Finlay. Yeah. Going to come in. Okay. Okay, members. Ronnie, do you want to come in?
It's just in, I don't know whether you're going through the recommendations there, but they're asked to agree to nominate 1 member from this committee. Could I put forward Craig for that member?
Okay, so that's a nomination for Craig.
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded. Any other nominations for the post? Sorry, Ronnie's just made a nomination for, if you look at recommendation 2.3, in terms of nominating a member to join the management group. Ronnie's suggesting Craig as the vice chair. I'm happy with that. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Don't know if Craig's happy with that, but are you happy with that, Craig? Yeah, okay. It's agreed, anyway. Okay, folks, can we turn to the other recommendations then? Are members happy to note 2.1? Okay, happy to agree 2.2. Okay, 2.3 is agreed. And 2.4, happy to note. Okay, thank you very much. And thanks very much to Ewan. Chris? Okay, members, can we turn to item number 10, which is to seek members' agreement on the 1-year funding agreement between Dumfries and Galloway Council and Visit Scotland. Chris and Ewan are here to answer questions, along with Paul MacDonald, Regional Director for the region from Visit Scotland. Is there anything to add to the report?
Nothing to add, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, folks, can I open it up to members for questions? Okay, Ian?
It's just a quick clarity, because when I seen this, it seemed like a blink of an eye since the last time we'd Visit Scotland here. But just remind me when the last time we had a service level agreement with them. I thought it was only a few months ago. Maybe that's just a quick time's going. It's maybe a year ago, I'm not sure. And just remind me how much that was as well, please.
The service level agreement that we had with Visit Scotland currently is a 3-year service level agreement. We come back each year and report to elected members on the outcome of that. This agreement is for a 1-year service level agreement, memorandum of understanding with Visit Scotland.
So this is additional on top of the existing, is that what you're saying?
The existing MOA has actually run its 3-year course. This is a new MOA for 1 year.
Thanks, that's clear now, Chairman.
Okay, yeah, okay. Other members? Finlay?
Is there any account of the relationship the council had with Destination Dumfries and Galloway in this contract, and how is the role they played within the region being covered now within this? Is there anything changed with that regard?
Destination Dumfries and Galloway formally ceased trading on the 31st of December last year, but the board of DD&G actually agreed that the remaining funding would revert to the Chamber of Commerce, and the Chamber of Commerce are in the process currently of setting up a tourism subgroup forum, which we and also Visit Scotland will be supporting in due course once that forum is set up.
Jim?
When you say the Chamber of Commerce, there is 2 chambers of commerce in Dumfries and Galloway.
They both will be involved.
Chambers? Okay. Any other members? Okay, I think it's worth stressing, of course, that we are about to embark in the process of refreshing the regional tourism strategy. So obviously, the significant focus for members in the weeks and months ahead. Okay, members, can we turn to the recommendations? Members happy to agree the minute of agreement? Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Okay, members, can we turn to item number 11, which is the proposals around Agnew Park regeneration in Stranraer. Can I ask the Director if there's anything he wishes to add to the report?
Nothing to add to the report, Chair, thank you.
Okay, we've got Ewan and Jason to answer any members' questions. Can I open it up to members? I was almost at recommendation.
I know you were waiting on me, Colin. No, it's been past the area committee. We've discussed it now. Just one general observation. On page 377, the picture of the new Agnew Park Cafe that's to be. The lovely balcony and the people standing out on it sipping cocktails is built facing towards Stranraer. Surely with common sense would have built it facing up the loch.
I think, to be fair, it's facing the park, where hopefully parents will be watching their kids playing the fantastic new equipment that hopefully this committee will agree to fund today.
I think I would rather look at the beautiful coastline than kids breaking legs and swings, but it's a matter of opinion.
I think there's members who may disagree with that, Graham, but your point's valid and well made. Any other members? Okay, Roberta?
Thank you. While I generally welcome the report, I raised this at Wigton Area Committee, and I've got to raise it again, sorry, but I will. One of the most popular suggestions was a beach area in the park. Now, behind the new building used to be a really nice little beach. And I've certainly been contacted, and I know my fellow colleagues have also been contacted by people saying Stranraer no longer has a beach. It would mean approximately about 50 yards being cleaned, raked, and some good sand put on it. And you would provide an additional resource for that park, which people love. They love a beach scene. That's my only comment. Thank you. Otherwise, it's perfect.
To be fair, the courtyard will, although we don't have a beach yet, but that's a point. I don't know if that. I mean, there's always. There's ongoing investment, and obviously members will have a further report in future weeks regarding the additional, I think, around £400,000 that we have available. So I'm sure that lots of members will be making various bids for that funding in the weeks ahead. Graham?
Yep, I agree entirely with Roberta. A few years ago, we used to have, in the West, we had a beach cleaning machine, which was basically a rake, a set of harrows behind a tractor. And we not only used it in Stranraer, we used it Sandhead, Port Patrick, Dromore, roundabout, and it was having a good effect. And I mean, it maybe wasn't equivalent to Jamaica, but through the course of time, it was building up. The only thing I could say was perhaps this new slipway it's silting up at the end, it might eventually lead to a good deposit of sand along the back of it.
I've just won my bet. How long before Graham mentions the slipway? Thanks for that, Graham. We'll mark it Stranraer as the Jamaica of the West. Finlay?
Can you tell us the timescales for completion?
Bringing Jason at this point.
I thought I was going to get away without speaking for the first time. The works will start, well, the start is imminent, subject to approval today, and will probably complete around about January.
Won't be too many people swimming in the sea
This year.
in January to look at, Graham. Okay. Okay, any other questions? Okay, members. I mean, joking aside, members, I mean, you know, when we look at what we've done at Dock Park, investment like this makes a significant difference to use. I mean, Agnew Park, I have to say, is already fantastic, and I think this additional investment will make it even better, and it'll be incredibly well used and a good asset for Stranraer. Okay, members, can we turn to recommendations? Members have to note 2.1, 2.2, agree 2.3, and agree 2.4. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, members, can we turn to item number 12, which was a report that we agreed to bring back when we discussed this issue in March 2014 regarding high hedges and the fee level. Can I ask the Director if there's anything to add to the report?
Nothing to add to the report, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, we've got David here to answer any questions. Do members have any questions? Ronnie?
I know I've said this before, but have we got a hedge fund?
Nobody laughed the first time you said it either, Ronnie. Okay, can I bring Ian in?
Just on a question in regards to the fee itself. It's up to each authority, and we've done it on a comparative basis across the other authorities. Is that on a cost recovery basis, or is it just a comparative? It is cost recovery.
Thank you, Chair. The legislation allows each authority to set a fee, unlike, say, planning applications, where it's a national fee. It's left up to each authority, and obviously last year we were coming to this unknown. Nobody knew exactly what it was going to cost, so each authority, whilst they did a fair amount of benchmarking with each other, just chose their own fee. But it's not allowed to be more than cost recovery. That's the one thing which legislation does require. So you can't use it as a fee-generating mechanism.
Okay, Jim?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's regarding our benchmarking counterparts. In 3.8, it says Highland and Argyll and Bute. And then you go to the appendix for Ayrshire, for South Ayrshire, who give a family of 8 for the SOLAS benchmarking. I take it that Highland and Argyll and Bute aren't our only benchmarking, and the follow-on question for that is two-part. What other councils are our benchmarking family? And is it the same family for every benchmarking criteria that is reported by the Improvement Service every year?
I can't speak for all issues, but certainly for planning, there are a group which is the sort of large rural authorities. So we're benchmarked with Scottish Borders, Aberdeenshire, Argyll and Bute, Highland, and recently they actually introduced the islands in with it as well. So slightly different geography, I suppose, but nonetheless, I think the Western Isles and Orkney and Shetland have been grouped in with us as well.
Okay, any other members? Okay, can we turn to the recommendations? Are members happy to note 2.1 and happy to agree to continue with the fee of £450? Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Very much, David. Okay, members, can we turn to item number 13, which is a report on the most recent local development plan supplementary guidance. A number of proposed amendments and suggestions to consider, as well as further guidance to discuss and put out to public consultation. Can I ask Alistair if there's anything he wishes to add to the report?
Nothing to add, Chair, just to note that I have a number of colleagues here today, and I'm sure David will introduce them, so members understand who they are and what they do. Thanks very much.
Want to do that first of all, David?
Thank you, Chair. It's really just what we have here are all the authors of the respective supplementary guidance. So running along from my right, you've got Karen Howarth, you've got John Doig, Christine Whittle, Anna Johnson, and Adrian Pringle.
Thanks very much. Open it up to members now for questions. Jane.
Well, just a question. It was about the proposed modification on the small building groups on page 454, and really just to find out how you propose to meet a locally identified need. And will, if that locally identified need and these houses for rent, will it continue and persist and be locally allocated? Just sort of curious to know how that will work.
I believe you're talking about the actual modification regarding the proposed allowance in sizes of that a group can actually grow by for affordable housing. I think we'll probably actually go back to our housing colleagues and ask them personally about the actual need and what the actual need is in that area, and rely on their professional judgment on that for that purpose.
Okay. Okay. Any other members?
So decided by officers, in essence.
Graham?
Yeah, I mean, when the local development plan went through full council, it was then submitted to the Scottish Government for ratification, and there were some fairly major changes made to it, which affected quite a lot of people without any consultation. Is that likely to happen again if we approve what's here today?
Well, obviously the supplementary guidance documents have been subject to consultation already, so I don't think there's anything going to change apart from what we've got in front of us. Well, obviously we've got to consider the council's response to the various suggested modifications as well. There are a number of changes here, but all the changes are in the papers before us today to agree. Okay, Alistair?
Thanks, Chair. Can we go through this, sir, on the basis of the proverbial bite-sized chunks and get it knocked down? You know, the first three, because I personally feel that the contentious one will be Appendix 4, Chair. So hopefully if we can get the first three appendices out of the way, that would be helpful.
Okay, well, the best way to do that is probably just to go through the recommendations, I think, and then we'll come to each of the appendices as part of that. So if we turn to the recommendations on page 405, in terms of the draft supplementary guidance at 2.1, there's obviously a number of drafts there, the ones on trees and development and also the one on alterations and extension to houses. The documents are contained within the report. Are members happy to agree those to be issued for public consultation? Yeah, okay. Second one is 2.2. Now we've got a number of responses to the public consultation. Do we wish to go through the first one, which is in relation to Dumfries and Galloway Council lighting guidance? Does anybody have any issues on that? Are we happy to adopt that as guidance? Adopt it. Okay, members happy to adopt. Okay, the next one is in relation to responses received regarding housing in the countryside. Do any members have any comments to make regarding the responses received to that consultation?
Chairman, just so I'm not exactly clear where we are. You can do the recommendations of Appendix 4, because I've got just a couple of comments, but actually points of clarity. I think I'm.
Yeah, we're just starting on Appendix 4 now, Ian. Yeah, so we're at 2.4 in terms of the recommendation, which covers Appendix 4. And if we want to flick to Appendix 4,
Page 453.
453. And the first set of responses we have is in relation to the guidance on housing in the countryside. There's a number of responses there, and there's also the council's response. Do any members have any comments to make on either the proposed modifications, the feedback that we've received as part of the consultation, the council's response, or are we happy to agree the council's response?
I mean, page 457 for myself, Chairman, if that's okay, just to come in. I mean, I think I'm in agreement. I just want to get clear understanding what it means. Page 457, second, the proposed modifications, the removal, just if I can get a clear understanding of what that means, how it would apply, and the difference that is between what we previously had agreed in draft and what that will mean as it goes out, and as far as if an application comes in, how it will be determined. I'm sure I am in agreement with that. I just would like further clarity.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch which bit, Councillor Carruthers.
Sorry, David. It's page 457. It's in particular the second box down where it says missed goals come in. And I think the proposed modification is to remove where it is practical to buy a house in the immediate vicinity of the farm or the rural business. And the second part is the economic viability of the development opportunities. I'd like to understand what that is a clear change for what was in the draft. I'm very much, I think, in support of that. I'd just like to understand from a development management point of view, what does that mean in real terms when somebody comes forward with an application?
Basically, I think when we looked at what had come in, we went back to the original policy in the LDP, and that has to be what you hang any supplementary guidance on. That's your starting point. And when we actually went back and noted what the policy was, there were concerns with one or two of the issues in the supplementary guidance that we had perhaps gone beyond what was stated in the policy. So that is really just paying that back. From a development management perspective, we will have to look at each application on its own merits, and the case which comes forward will have to be made by the applicant. It will take a little bit of time to get used to this new mechanism of looking at it, and over time we will build up consistency on that. But I think we were quite comfortable with the proposed amendments to the wording that we should be able to give consistent responses to those when they come in.
Okay, Alistair.
Thanks, Chair. I must confess that I'm getting just a wee bit confused, because if you take page 453, Chair, my understanding is in fact that Council response for the first one, comments received to the SG General. I take it that we accept that, no problems with that, and it's the same with the second one. I would suggest, Chair, where in fact the Council response's proposed modification is essentially taking on board the comments which we've got. The third one, as far as I can read it, sir, is a horse out the same stable, and again, I would have no problems with that. And it's only when you get down to comments received to the supplementary guidance, agricultural or rural business need, I think that there might be some divergences of view in that. So, can we take the first? Can we take the first four as being read then, sir, and go to five?
Absolutely. If nobody's got any queries on those, quite happy with that. Sorry, Jane, do you have any queries on the first four?
If I'm just getting to page 455, we're talking about, I think that's what Councillor Geddes was suggesting. We got to 455, and that's where we might have questions. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have a question or a specific point you want to make on it, Alistair, first, and then if Jane wants to come in? Yeah. Okay, Jane?
Well, it was, if I get my head around this, on page 455, the representative was asking that there should be the inclusion of the no economically viable development opportunities. But further on, we have suggested as far as the 25 years is concerned, that we're trying to avoid neglect of existing buildings. That's what we're trying to do, because we want to maintain the current buildings that are there, and if they are available for conversion, have them converted. Now, who decides whether something is economically viable? I'm concerned that what we will find is that a perfectly good little cottage in the steading is ignored, and simply we're told that it's not viable to redevelop it, and is ignored, and application is made to build a new house, which is probably not right in terms of physical planning. Might be absolutely right in terms of nice, easy issue of whacking up a cottage, but it might not be the best for the physical planning. So I'm asking about that economically viable phrase, please.
You're on the issue around rural brownfield sites on page 457, is that correct?
No, I'm on 455.
Okay.
Am I? I've moved on. Well, it first comes up in 455, yes. 457, yes. Chairman, I think I might have muddied the waters. It's the thing that I'm talking about actually appears on 456. Does that help you?
I did wonder about that, yes.
Yes,
Thank you for clarifying.
Sorry, 456. That's the issue of an economically viable alternative.
Yeah. Basically, Chair, when we receive an application which includes a case to try and demonstrate whether or not it is economically viable, we will look at that, and if we're in any doubt, as we did on one very recently, then we can actually seek a third-party opinion, which is funded very often by the applicant themselves, but we choose who actually produces the survey. And so there's one which very recently we simply didn't believe what came in originally and got a third party to come in and assess it. So yes, we can do that.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, no problem at all. Alistair?
In an effort to be helpful, Chair, if we can go back to the heading which I've actually numbered, number 5, it's comments received to supplementary guidance, agricultural or rural business need. And my view, sir, would be, given the Council's response to the various submissions that's been made in that regard and the proposed modifications, that we adopt that today, sir. And then we thereupon move on to the next one, which is I'm not quite sure now if that's the one that Jane raised, section 6, comments received regarding retirement succession of a viable farm holding. Sorry?
It was before that, but we will move on to the retirement succession of a viable farm. Does any members wish to raise any points, or are you happy with the Council's response there?
I would agree with the Council's response, Chair.
Okay. Any other member?
No.
Okay, move on to the next one, which is comments received regarding rural brownfield sites. Do any members have any points, or are we happy with the Council's response to that? Alistair?
I would accept the Council's response, sir, albeit there was a bit of dubiety at a recent specific application before the Planning Applications Committee, whether the site in question was brownfield, greenfield, or as Mr Sutty said, it was a combination of both. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, other members happy with the Council's response on that one? Okay, if we move on to page 458, comments regarding housing in the remote area. Any members have any comments regarding this, or are you happy with the Council's response? Okay, happy with the Council's response. Okay. We'll move on to the next supplementary guidance document, which is regarding affordable housing. That begins in page 459. Members, if we look at the introduction, members happy with the Council's response, which is effectively no proposed modifications? Alistair?
Can I make one observation, sir? And it's not. I hasten to add, it's not meant to belittle, an organisation. I'm talking about the Dumfries and Galloway Small Communities Housing Trust, who have taken the time and made the effort, as it were, to respond, and whose responses, by and large, Chair, have been well received. But there is a statement there, and the paragraph halfway down, page 460, sir. It says that It is our experience over the past few years that developers are largely unaware of their options, and we have found ourselves providing general advice about what might be acceptable to the council. Now, I'm sure the Vice Chair in particular knows exactly where I'm coming from in that one. I would suggest, in fact, that that's not the function, the role, or the remit of the organisation, and I really do, I really am surprised, to read that statement in the report. Be that as it may, as I've said, Chair, I'm not trying to belittle that claim, but particularly in the back of the other good quality comments that the organisation have made. But I really do find that surprising, sir. That's not the function, it's not the role.
Okay, point made. Okay, any other members have any comments on the section and provision of affordable housing, or happy to agree the council's response? Okay, if we move to page 461, the next section is on types of affordable housing. Members have any points on this, or are you happy to accept the council's response? I'll take that as happy to accept the response. Yep. Okay. If we move on to page 462, first one is on delivering affordable housing. Do members have any comments to make on this? No, happy to accept the council's response. Okay. Next one is on-site provision on page 462. Happy to agree the council's response, or any other comments? Okay. Okay, the next one is on off-site provision at the bottom of page 462 and on to page 463. There's a proposed modification there. Does any member have any comments on that, or are you happy to agree? Happy to agree? Yeah. Okay. The next one is at the bottom of 463 on to page 464, which is on commuted sums. Summary of the comments are there and the council's response. Are members happy to agree the council's response, or does anybody have any other view? Okay. Happy to agree? Okay, Jim?
Just can we assure that's always the case, because in some occasions commuted sums have been waived by officers on the basis that it's the only way the development could go ahead.
Want to answer that, David? I think yes is probably the answer. Right? Yeah.
I'm not aware of such instance, but I'm sure you'll remind me afterwards. But basically the policy which we now have sets out the framework for how we'll be looking at these for going forward.
That appears to be yes. I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Okay, Alistair.
Grateful, Chair. It's an issue, sir, which all members of the committee would go. Well, it was sent at 5:30 last night, and I must confess that I never got it until this morning. Having been out in council business, it's from Gordon Hodge, and he's talking, in fact, about housing development immediately outside settlement boundaries. How are we going to deal with that, Chair? It's quite a lengthy, quite a voluminous submission. It's merely a process question I'm asking at this stage, because I wouldn't want to see us complete the run through this and then suddenly remember that we've got this this further set of submissions, Chair.
I'm presuming it basically refers to the section on page 472 regarding housing development outside the settlement boundary, and if any member wishes to raise any points during that, then it's certainly open to members to do so. Absolutely.
I was flagging it up, sir, just in case we overlooked it.
If any member wishes to raise it at that point, absolutely open to members to do so, yeah. Okay, so we're happy with the council's response to commuted sums. Only one question here from Jim. Can we move on to page 46? Well, sorry, the bottom of 464, which is the use of commuted sums. Are members happy with the council's response to the submissions there? Yeah, okay. Can we move on to page 465, development viability? There's comments there from Lord House and the council's response there. Are members happy with the council's response? Yeah, okay. The next one is on planning obligations, halfway down page 465. Happy with the council's response? Yeah, okay. Okay, move on to the next guidance, which is on town centre and retail development. First comments are on the bottom of page 465, and the council's response is on page 466. Are members happy with the council's response? Yep. Okay, and that was only comments received regarding that document. So we move on to the next one, which is conversion of traditional agricultural buildings, halfway down page 466. Number of comments received there and the council's response at the bottom of page 466. Can I ask if members are happy with the response to the general comments? Yeah, okay. Can we move on to page 467 on character appraisals? A number of comments received regarding that issue, and the council's response is at the bottom of page 467 with proposed modifications onto page 468 at the top. Can I ask if members are happy with the council's response and the modifications? Yeah. Okay. Can we move on to page 468 and landscape setting, halfway down page 468. A response there and the council's response. Are members happy with the council's response? Yeah. Okay. Okay, the next one is regarding external spaces. A number of comments raised under that section. Are members happy with the council's response, which is on page 468 and onto page 469? Happy? Yeah. Okay. Okay, can we move on to page 469, which is design principles, massing and proportion? Number of comments received there. Are members happy with the council's response and proposed modifications? Yeah. Okay. Okay, at the bottom of page 469, going on to page 470, on outdoor spaces. A number of comments received there. The council's response halfway down page 470 and a proposed modification. Are members happy with the response and the modification? Jane?
Well, it was just the point raised by Mr. Robertson, I noticed on page 470, citing of fuel tanks and ancillary buildings are required as part of planning application. What is the situation as regards that? Because I see that the council doesn't think that's worth asking to have in or suggesting. What is the issue there? Can we control it, or I thought tanks were controlled actually.
Tanks will have permitted development rights in certain circumstances, so we wouldn't be able to control all of them in places such as conservation in grounds of listed buildings. Then they're controllable, but otherwise they generally don't require permission. They're cited to the rear.
Okay, so are members happy with the council's response? Okay, if we move to the next one on page 470, which is regarding parking. A couple of comments received there on the council's response with proposed no modifications to the first one and some to the second one. Are members happy with proposed modifications? Yeah. Okay, can we move on to 471, services? Comments received from the council. Any comments on council's response? Okay. And can we move on to materials and construction? Members happy to agree the modifications? Yeah. Okay. Can we turn to page 472, which is on the issue of house development immediately outside the settlement boundary, the next set of guidance. Number of submissions received here. If we look at the first one, which is on the general issue, any members wish to raise any regarding the comments here or the council's response? It's on page 472, 473, on to page 474. Ian?
I don't actually have any comments in regards to what's been submitted within here, but I've got some of my own comments that I'd like to be asked for clarity once we went through this process, each on this particular subject.
Raise them now, does it? Will it mean any?
Well, just to get a clear understanding, I've tried to get an understanding. When we went through the local development plan process, we've got, I think it's something like 126 settlements, Dumfries and Galloway. We put 49 of them with clear inset maps. The other 76 were lying out with, or 77, whatever it is, were lying out with just so there was a criteria base where they would come in and apply for. So I went around and looked at a couple of settlements in my area, one being Powfoot. So when we looked at that, there's actually nowhere to develop. If you to fit into the criteria as proposed. Looked at Brykirk as well, with myself, only myself in Brykirk, which is my own village, because obviously I'm there a lot, but just, again, there's 2 or 3 sites still to develop, but there's nowhere for expansion, because you've got this no natural boundary, which is very, very clear that it's implicit within the criteria. And that's where I've got a difficulty. So I will come back to that at some point, just to get an understanding. I'm not sure who'll speak on that, but this no natural boundary, you're talking like a rock cliff or a river or a mature wood, something like that, or maybe a kind of public footpath, just to get an understanding. It seems very restrictive the way it's outlined at the moment. So I will come back to that in general. I'm not picking up on the points that have been raised already by others. It's just a specific point from myself, how that can possibly be addressed, or is it being addressed with the recommendations that are here.
But is that you're specifically referring to the guidance on housing development outside settlement boundaries?
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, we're going to move on to the next one, so it's probably this is the time to raise it, obviously, to get any response to it before we move on to the next one.
As far as I'm aware, it is the policy in regards to development adjacent to settlement, well, settlements rather than settlement boundaries, because we actually removed the boundary from these smaller settlements. So I maybe could take advice in regards to that. It's not the ones with inset maps; it's the ones out with.
Okay.
Sorry, I think the references you're referring to are the housing and villages policy, which is this one now, the housing immediately adjacent to the settlement boundary, is actually talking about ones that actually have an identified settlement boundary. So
Okay, that is my confusion. That's where I was getting confused there. So no, that's quite clear now. Thanks.
You managed to confuse the chair as well, Ian. Thanks for that. Okay. Right, can I ask members if there's anybody wishes to raise anything regarding the housing development immediately outside settlement boundary? Alistair.
Thanks, sir. Can we go back, though, to the question that's posed, I think, in page 2 of the latest submission from Robert Potter and Partners? That's the one that's dated last night. It says, until officers are able to properly report on this matter, in our opinion, it would not be appropriate for members to agree to this draft statutory supplementary guidance being sent to the Scottish Ministers for their approval, accompanied by such a flawed summary and response. We trust that you will agree in deferred determination of this matter until the issues have been resolved. I would really like some guidance and response to that from a process perspective, Chair.
To respond to that, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. This is obviously an email which has been sent to members and was not sent to officers, so it's difficult to comment on, but thankfully I have been made aware of it before the meeting, which hasn't given an awful lot of time to digest it. But in essence, what we're talking about here is this particular document on the supplementary guidance for housing development immediately outside settlement boundaries. Now, hopefully this is a piece of supplementary guidance that we won't need to actually use within the lifespan of the LDP, simply because we have made a generous allowance within each housing market area. So we're not talking about individual settlements, but the housing market area within that time period. In the event that all those get built out or found to be, for one reason or other, not effective land, then that's the instance where we would actually move to this, and we would look for these supplementary guidance criteria to be the ones which we would assess any application which came forward for that land. But the whole LDP process was gone through properly. It was subject to extensive consultation. The full council considered it. It went through inquiry, reporters, examination. What I'm a bit concerned about from my quick reading of the email here is that it appears to be trying to reopen that and look again at issues of what sites should be included and what shouldn't be. It's very, very early in the period of the LDP to be looking at whether or not sites are effective or not effective. It was adopted in September 2014, a matter of months ago. So I've read what was said. I don't think there is anything in there which I would...
Sorry, I mean, I don't know what you're talking about here. I'm not clear what email you're talking about or anything, so, you know, it means nothing to me.
Okay. No, it's difficult because not all members have the opportunity to have a read at the email, but obviously Alistair's raised the point, so I think David continue that.
To summarise for members, this is an email which came in at 5:30 last night from Gordon Hodge from Potters and Partner. Now, you will notice on page 472 fairly extensive comments which have come in there. In essence, he is complaining that that's been summarised too harshly, that he felt some of the issues were missed out of his original submission. Well, it is a summary, and it has been, to my mind, satisfactorily addressed within the terms of the report. And he is obviously querying issues about effectiveness within particularly the Dumfries housing area, but it's way too early in the plan period to discuss that. So this is basically an email which has not been given due scrutiny. I'm satisfied that what you have in the report before you is robust and competent. I've got no hesitation suggesting that members do proceed to consider it today.
Okay, Alistair?
That was precisely the advice I was seeking, sir, and I was careful to make it clear that I was looking for the advice from a process perspective. Thank you.
From a process perspective, we all got an email, some of us got an email at 5:30 last night with a lot of accusations about officers not answering questions, and yet it's brought up here today, and that's not the best way to do business. If that guy wanted to get stuff in there, he should have done it long before 5:30 last night. To me, it tried to steer the committee, put it politely, and I don't think we should be dealing with business like that.
Okay. Any member wish to raise anything on the specific issue around the housing development immediately outside the settlement boundary? Can I just ask, just generally, on the general point, and it was certainly something discussed at the seminar, is making sure that we robustly assess the housing need issue. So I suppose the general point is that effectively we've allocated, and as you see, I think generous levels when it comes to housing development, but how we actually assess, realistically, will these be developed or not, and how we take that into account when it comes to reviewing the plan on a regular basis. I think you make the valid point that it's too early at this stage to start reviewing something agreed recently, but we have to be clear as we're going through that we are meeting the need for housing, and we are realistic over which sites are likely to be developed and unlikely to be developed. So what process are we putting in place to really robustly assess that, so that members can be clear that the sites that are within the LDP are satisfactory to meet that need?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, there's a number of things. We obviously have the annual housing land audit, which is published and has gone through. We are already undertaking work for LDP2 in collaboration with our colleagues in the strategic housing, where probably one of the most fundamentally important pieces of work for LDP2 is going to be what's called the HNDA, the Housing Needs and Demand Assessment. So we've already started work on that, which is a fairly lengthy document to produce. Critically as well, the team along here have also been doing something that has never been done before. They are actually currently in the process of phoning up people who put forward their land for inclusion in LDP1, stating that this was land which they wanted to have included. And this is actually being monitored and checked as to whether or not this land is still effective, whether they are still going to want it included. So we're monitoring both the intentions of the landowner and what has actually been built out.
So we're speaking to the potential developers, well, not developers, but people who own land, to say, is this effectively still, so we're doing that, and that effectively, on an annual basis, we look at that in terms of the housing need, is that?
Certainly the housing audit is an annual process. I think there's only the intention of phoning them up the once at the moment to establish things, but I don't know. But it could be done more regularly, especially as we get near to LDP2 time.
Jim, do you want to come in?
I'm more interested in the people that say yes, but then don't actually develop their land, and sitting, some of them in cases, my ward, for 20 years with planning permission and nothing actually done. And it's when we get to the stage of saying to these people, well, we'll actually remove that site and offer other sites, because if we're offering capacity, it needs to be capacity that actually somebody wants to develop, not somebody wants to land bank until a time when it's more convenient to develop.
Point, Jim. So how do we assess that, the voiding land banking effect?
Well, one thing you can immediately ask them is to demonstrate how they've marketed the land and is it at a correct market value that they've been marketing it. If they can't demonstrate that and it's got a long period, I can certainly think of many ones like was being mentioned there that have been in a local plan for many years, which have just never been built out, then we would seriously question whether they're effective land, and many of those sites were stripped out in the LDP.
Alistair, you covered, yeah. Ian?
It was just something that's been brought up many times before this in the past. I think Alice and I in particular used to bring it up with it when the start of the last local development plan process, and I think the right time, and that's why I haven't made any comments in regards to this particular subject, because it's the next local development plan we'll have a clear understanding how much land we still have left, how effective it has been, and if somebody is land banking, then that's the appropriate time to address it then through the next local development plan.
Okay, any other members on this section? It's on page 472 and 473 and 474. Okay, are members happy to agree the council's response? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Can we move on to page 475? Design quality of new development, the consultation on that. There's a number of comments received and the council's response halfway down. Are members happy to agree the council's response or any other? Yeah, happy to agree. Okay, the bottom of page 475 is open space and new development. Comment received from Sports Scotland. Anybody got any views on that or just happy to note it? Yeah. Okay. Okay. On to page 476. On identifying need requirements for open space. Number of comments received there and the council's response. On page 476 and 477, members happy to agree the council's response? Yeah, okay. Okay, if we look at the adoption of open space halfway down page 477, members happy to agree the council's response? Yeah, okay. And at the bottom of page 477, financial contributions, onto page 478, are members happy to agree the council's response? Yeah. Okay, and at the bottom of page 478, on accessibility and linkages to open space, that moves on to page 479. Members happy to agree the council's response and the proposed modification? Yeah. Okay. And open space quality guidance, halfway down 479, a number of comments received there. On to page 480, and there's a proposed modification. Members happy to agree that modification? Yeah. Okay. And at the bottom of page 480, on open space maps, a number of comments received there, and the council's response and modification on page 481. Are members happy to agree that? Sorry, Jane?
It's just that I wondered, the amendments to the map, there was a very small patch in Kirkcudbright between Bell's Barns and the old Castle Dykes schoolhouse, which I did point out to somebody. I can't remember who the heck I pointed it out to, but I did point it out to somebody. It's a very small patch, but it doesn't appear in the maps, and it is open space. It's quite deliberately carved out from the PPP and maintained by the PPP providers as an open space for the town. Quite small, but significant, because if it wasn't there, there would be a fence right across where there is an area where you can actually get out to kick a ball about. Just a very small patch, but I noticed it wasn't on the maps. Shall I point it out afterwards? I mean, it's a fact. It is definitely a fact, and it's mown at the moment, but it is a little space, little patch of open space.
Okay, should if you speak to David afterwards, we can look at that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, members, let's go back to the recommendations. Okay, we'd already agreed 2.2 to 2.3, so 2.4, I think we've covered that. Yeah, members happy with responses, okay. 2.5, we're happy to remit with powers, that phrase. Remit with powers to the head of planning and regulatory services to notify, yeah, okay, happy with that. And finally, 2.6, to adopt the various guidance notes there. Members happy to do so. Okay, Jane?
I think we should say actually that these new guidances that have been proposed actually I think are extremely good. I really do. I think they'll give people real guidance, real help. People are applying and make certainty. So I do congratulate the officers on the work that was done there.
Yeah, I would absolutely echo that as well. I think it continues the high quality guidance notes that we've had so far, I have to say, and we look forward to having the responses to both the documents reported to future committee. Okay, members. I have no other business, apart from one point I want to make. I think this is Kenny Ross, who's hiding at the back. Last meeting, Kenny, of course, had the short straw of being allocated this committee as one of his very wide-ranging remits within the comms department. Kenny, unfortunately, I have to say, considering the number of times it gets me mentioned in the papers in particular, but Kenny, unfortunately, is moving to South Ayrshire Council, and I think will be a huge loss to the comms team, I have to say. I'm sure he'll have equal challenge within South Ayrshire's local media as he has within Dumfries and Galloway's media, but I think I'd like to express my thanks to Kenny and wish him well on behalf of the committee for his future career in South Ayrshire. And thanks very much indeed for all your work, Kenny. Very much. Well, you should have told me that before I thanked him, but that's... Okay, members, thank you for your attendance today. Thanks.